Hi guys, it's our Youth Summit, our annual general meeting for the Adventist Youth Department. And you're going to be watching at this moment our President's Report. So with me is the Jemalie John, our AYMAC President. Hi Jemalie.
Hello, Reenah.
And how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. How are you doing?
I'm okay. How was your 2020 been thus far?
Well, 2020 was a very challenging year,
Mm-hmm.
but I think despite the challenges that we've had, we still have a lot to be grateful for. So I think overall it was a good year.
So your one word would be challenging or good? Which one?
Well, it was good.
Okay.
Let's stick with good.
Okay. So before we even go on further, we have a couple of questions for you to answer here. But there is this one I've been dying to ask you, right? How do you really feel when people call you Mr. President?
Well, I think it's kind of awkward because nobody says Mr. Youth Director or
Mm-hmm.
Sister Secretary or Sister Treasurer.
Mm-hmm.
So I have no idea why people call me Mr. President.
You know, when they say Mr. President, automatically Air Force One goes to my mind. I'm like, oh, okay, that's kind of awkward. But yeah. And, okay, interesting. So, apologize for calling you Mr. President, but I have
That's
to
fine.
for the next 3 minutes or so. That's cool?
That's okay.
Okay. What is your most asked question? Apart from your height, obviously, as president of the AYMAC, what is your most asked question?
Well, I don't think there's a question that people ask me like all the time, but I have been asked some difficult questions before. Right now, I'm thinking about two in particular. Um, People have asked me, why does it seem like every time the youth department does something, it's always about having a good time? Like it's always some hype, I don't know. What about the spiritual aspect to what the youth department is doing? And I found that to be an interesting question. I was also asked, how do you guys evaluate youth leaders? Because you have your training program, and after, people train, they're invested. How do you evaluate them to see if they're actually fulfilling their objectives, their mandate? So those two questions stand out in my mind. I found them interesting. These days, though, the question that people probably ask me more than the other question is Reenah single? And I
Okay.
I can't answer that question. Are you
I
Reenah?
can't. I plead the fifth.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I can't
Wow.
answer that question.
I was kind of hoping you'd answer the question now, so I don't have to answer the
Do I
question.
have to?
You don't have to, but I mean, would have been good.
Okay. Yes, I'm single.
Single and ready to mingle. Anyway, so those two questions. Number one, the youth department is not just about having a good time. There are a lot of things that we do that, perhaps people figure what we put on Facebook, what we put on YouTube and Instagram is all that we do. But there's a lot more that happens off camera. So I could tell you that when youth leaders register for the training programs, whether it's master guide training or youth leadership training, there are a lot of things that you have to do in order to become invested. Personal testimony that when I was in the guide class in Pathfinders, that's when I learned about the sanctuary service. And it has stuck with me since then. So and these are nothing that you'll see on Facebook, by the way. It's not on YouTube, it's not on Instagram, but there's a lot of Bible study, a lot of Bible reading, books like Great Controversy, Last Day Events, devotionals. These are things that we have to do as a part of our training as youth leaders. That's one. And number two, I've had the opportunity to travel across the island and to see the work that districts and churches do within their communities, whether it's care packages, whether it's the spoken word, whether it's health checks, a whole variety of different programs that they do to impact their communities. I don't know if you would consider that having a good time, but I see it as service to humanity. So there are a lot of spiritual things that do happen in the youth department.
Okay. That's good to know. And I know from experience for myself, I've been involved in lots of leadership training courses, which includes Bible study and Bible reading and everything, because you have to be learned to teach the youth below you.
That is true.
Who you're taking care of. So there, what that you haven't seen enough from
Mhm.
Facebook and Instagram and so forth. That's good to hear.
The voice of Jesus calling, who will come and work today. Fields are wide and harvest waiting, and who will bear the sheaves away? Come and help me sing choir. Loud and long, the master calls. Reach reward. He offers. Who will answer? Who will answer? Gladly say, here I am. Send me. Bring the strings up. If you cannot speak like angel, and if you cannot preach like Paul, I tell you what, you can tell the love of Jesus. You can say he died for all. If you can rouse the weak with the judgment strength, you can lead the little children to the Savior's way. Let none hear you idly say, there is nothing I can do. Whilst the multitude are dying, and the master calls for you. Take the take the task he gives you gladly, and let your work, your pleasure be, answer quickly when he calls. Here I am, send me. Somebody clap your hands.
Looking back on the accomplishments of your team, and you had many things that you'd have done for the year, how do you feel?
How do I feel? I feel good because COVID no doubt kind of threw things off course for most of us. And I believe that if anybody was going to be able to respond, like to recalibrate and respond to the COVID challenge, it would have been the young people. Because that's just the way I see young people. They are the ones who are creative, who are imaginative, and who are possessed with the will to respond quickly and to adapt to changes. So this year, even though we had to cancel a lot of programs, choir festival, senior youth camp, and even all district camps, and a range of other things, global youth day activities, and a whole list of things, we were able to adapt. So we had Friday Night Live this year, and I think that was pretty good. You guys did you guys did an okay job. But we've had that, and then we had to adjust some of our programs too to comply with the COVID guidelines. So when we had public speaking, that was done differently this year. We had Sing a New Song too, which was not really intended to be like an online program, but we had to make that kind of switch to to adjust to the times. And
we can as well.
We can as well, right? And that's usually one of the big outdoor programs. So I'm proud of the young people. They were able to adjust to the changes and adapt and, still fulfill their mandate, notwithstanding the challenges.
So there are lots of challenges that you face as a leader, I'm sure, that we're not privy to. When is youth leadership the hardest and the easiest? Give us the good news first. When is the easiest?
When it's the easiest, youth leadership is easiest when you have a good team of people working with you. And I think I was fortunate enough to have an amazing team working with me. So, it just blows my mind.
So that's the easy part.
Right.
But we also want to know the downside. When is it the hardest?
It's difficult because naturally things happen that frustrate you. So for instance, we've had some programs and things didn't always go according to plan. Dominica comes to mind, for instance. I've been a part of a number of projects before, and I've never seen so many things go wrong on one project before. And it's easy in those moments to feel tired, to feel frustrated, to feel like you want to give up when you are taxed and burdened with your responsibilities. And sometimes some of our youth leaders are faced with very unique challenges. I'm thinking especially about those who are on the far ends of the island, churches where you don't have a lot of young people in the church. Those challenges can really tax you, right? But what I have found is that even in those moments when I feel like I want to give up, when things are really difficult, there are things that kind of inspire me to continue. There are two experiences that I'd share, and I have a number of these, but I'll share two. Just for now. I remember when we had Friday Night Live, and there was this night when Max was not feeling well, right? So he was sick, and before the program started, he was just there, like hunched over, looking sick. And I went to him, I'm like, bro, you sure you okay? And he was like, yeah, I'm okay, right? And I don't know what they gave him, but they gave him something. He took something, and by the time the lights came on and the camera started rolling, I said to myself, nobody looking at Friday Night Live tonight would know that Max is sick.
Right.
And when you have those experiences, when you have those kind of people on your team, I figure somebody else might have probably call and say, yo, I'm not feeling well, I can't make it. But if people sit down and think about it, you have two hosts for 8 months running several programs, and you guys have been there all the time. Nothing ever came up, nobody ever felt sick, nobody ever felt like, okay, I'm tired. When you see that level of commitment, for me, I rationalize it like, okay, if there are other people on this team who are giving 100%, then what's my excuse? The same way I felt when I was at Dominica. When sun was setting Friday evening, we knew we still had a lot of work to do. We had to break at that point. And we went out to the city, which was a long drive, by the way, to church in Roseau. And we were out all day. And we got back to the campsite, and the campus was just like, all right, let's change, let's go back to work. And then we just went straight until minutes to 1 the next morning. So when you see that kind of commitment, when I feel like, yo, why am I doing this to myself? I'm tired. When you see the commitment of other people, it inspires you to continue. Yeah.
I understand. Okay. You've mentioned your programs, and we've mentioned all the programs. We can sing a new song, find a life. These are good programs and initiatives, right? But for those of us who are on the outside, it would just appear.
Are you on the outside though? Go ahead.
Those of you on the outside, it would just appear like these are just activities just to keep us,
Engaged,
occupied or engaged. But what is the true measure of success for your ministry, for the youth department?
What's the true measure of success? We usually look at the numbers when we want to evaluate programs. So if you have a program and a lot of people show up, the tendency always has been to say, okay, this program has been a success simply because people showed up. That's not really a good measure of success, because people could show up, we could have a packed event, but the program could still be a failure, right? So for me, I don't really evaluate programs in that way, even though those things are important too. I'm not saying they're not important, but I am satisfied that what we are doing has an impact on people. So for instance, one of my favorite programs for this year 2020 was that program on mental health, where we had Pastor McDonald and Odelia and Latanya coming in to share their testimony. In particular, Latanya's testimony, because she was able to use that platform to share her story and also to share with other people who might have been going through a similar challenge. Just tips, how she was able to get through, and what tips young people could use to get them through some of those dark, difficult moments. And from the feedback that I got privately, I know that was really impactful. And so I know that the impact is there, right? And you will never really know all the time how what you do is affecting people. So for instance, even for me, how it has impacted me as an individual. Perhaps one of the most difficult decisions I've had to make, like throughout my presidency, was whether or not I should go to Dominica. Believe it or not, that was the toughest decision I had to make, because the camp was in July. The first week in July we were supposed to sail out to St. Vincent. And in June, the first week of June, my father took sick, right? And even at that time, our family didn't really know what was wrong. And so I was saying to myself, okay, my father is not well. I should probably go and be with him where he is, or at least be of some support to my family, right? And I was saying to myself, we've been promoting this program now for like a year and a half. We've already hyped this thing up. I'm supposed to be the camp director, and am I supposed to just tell Brent, I can't go. I'm sorry, but I kind of have to run off and leave you alone on this one. And I'd probably have to go and find somebody else to be camp director. And just imagine calling somebody up weeks before to say, oh, you want to go to Dominica? We kind of need a camp director, right? That was very difficult for me, because for me, I felt like I needed to be there with my family. And in the end, I decided to go, because I understood that I had a responsibility, and I tried to take my responsibility seriously. So I ended up going, and then, of course, thankfully, while I was away, nothing serious happened. But about 2 months later, my father died. And I mean, it might sound funny, but in a lot of ways, just being there in Dominica helped me to get through perhaps one of the most difficult period of my life, because in leading up to that trip, as I said to you before, I've worked on a lot of projects before, but I have never seen so many things go wrong on one project. And there were points in time I was wondering, is this thing really going to happen? And then when it was done, and we looked back on it, and we saw how everything came together, like, I think the message that God was sending to me in those moments was, there will be times in your life when it seems like everything is just falling apart, when nothing seems to make any sense. But if you leave it up to me, if you trust me in those moments, things will work out. And so that message, along with other things that was said on the camp, that perhaps the devotional speakers never thought were impactful, it was those messages, that lesson, that actually helped me get through that period of my life.
You trying to make us cry something here?
No, man,
that's real sacrifice. That's commendable. That is something. Don't cry.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this moment. It did not come easy, but we thank you, Lord, that we are on the wharf. We are ready to board to sail to Dominica. for the very first time ever in the history of our field.
As campers, we are here and we are here as one. It says that we are one. We are not 2, 3, or 4. We may come from different churches, but we are one. Touch your neighbor and say, be content. Be content. Yes. Even if some things go short, even if internet goes short, light goes short, food goes short, money goes short, you don't have enough clothes. Even if things go short, just remember that God says He will never forsake you. I want us to understand, even if it's a mission trip and we love to have fun, let's remember Jesus at the center of it. Let's remember who Jesus is and what He has done for us. And let's remember that He's the one that brought us here. And we will be contented tonight to do whatsoever He asks us to do. Amen.
time?
12:41.
The time is now 12:41 a.m. on July the 14th, 2019. And after 3 days, and the rain, sun,
Snow.
dust. I thought I saw snow, but I didn't see snow. I have to tell you that you will be done. Take that in your chest. Boom and done.
That's something to hear. I know many of us would not have figured that you went through all of that in your presidency, Mr. President.
Yes.
But I am thankful, and I'm sure the others are thankful that you have given your time, your resources, made your sacrifices to make the youth department, along with your team, what it is today. and what you would have done. On a much lighter note, thank you. Don't make things so serious. On a much lighter note, what is one program or initiative apart from your Dominic experience that you say you would personally continue to push for or would have pushed for with a degree of passion unlike any other?
That's a hard question. This is the truth, eh? I don't even know what's going to happen going forward. But I'm sure I'd find something to do.
Mm-hmm.
But there's just so much that we could do. Like for me, like for all that we have done, I feel like there's still so much more that could be done. And so some of the things that we've done this year that might not have been in the headlines, but you see that entrepreneurial directory that we kind of conceptualized, that it's not quite done yet. But I feel like within the church we need to carve out a space for young professionals, entrepreneurs, self-employed business people, where we could see how we could support each other, create opportunities for mentorship, because young people, I mean, it's not just spiritual. Young people need money too. You understand?
Yes.
So that's one thing that I am very excited about that we were able to accomplish this year. I'm also interested in capacity building, and I've always seen that as my primary responsibility as president, because it doesn't make any sense for you to have a good national organization, but then your district struggling or the local church struggling. It doesn't really make any sense. So that is why I have focused a lot of my time on ensuring that every district across the island has a functional days, and also to ensure that every church across the island has an active youth department, right? And we were able to roll out a new constitution this year to help with reducing fragmentation, to help with being more effective, more efficient, and more deliberate in what we are doing. And so this is something that I could always help with, even if I'm not necessarily in the position. So, you know, those are things I think about.
Okay, so where do you see your department in the next 5 years in St. Vincent and the Grenadines? Not just for the church, but how do you see the department impacting the country in general?
Well, I believe that, AYMAC is already in some ways the most impactful, the most active youth organization in the country. But we need to go a step further to cement that, right? So I see in a few years from now, AYMAC should be the most active, the most impactful youth association in the country. And I think we have all the talent, we have all the skill, we have all the resources that we need to accomplish that.
That's some big talk right there.
No, I'm telling you. I'm telling you. And I think that we need to give young people the benefit of the doubt. People don't always give young people the benefit of the doubt. And I have to do that. As a youth leader, I have to do that. And I believe that young people want to be a part of something bigger than themselves. They want to be a part of something that, you know, give them some sense of meaning and purpose in life. And I could tell from the experiences that we have had that the spirit of volunteerism is alive and well. And young people want to get involved. They want to be a part of leadership, not just on the lower level, but at the highest levels, in church, outside the church. And I see them stepping up to the plate. And I'll tell you something. There are a lot of things that happen in our churches that should never happen. There are a lot of things that happen in the country as well that should never happen. And if we are going to solve some of the problems that we have right now in our society, in our churches, I don't see who else is going to solve them but young people. And I think perhaps our leaders are too comfortable. And that's one of the things I like about Pastor Brent. He's a rebel. And I try to be a rebel myself. I try to behave myself.
Pastor Brent for Prime Minister.
Most times. But you can't be afraid to rock the boat, to shake things up, to make your leaders uncomfortable, because sometimes they do things that they're not supposed to do. And you can't just see yourself as, oh, I'm just a leader in my local church. You're much more than that. You have the capacity to hold them accountable and to bring about the changes that you need to see in your church, in your community, in your country. And so our young people have the capacity to do that, and I want them to see themselves as being more than just filling a role.
Okay. In other words, the future is here. It's our
It's
turn.
now.
It's
Yeah.
now. Right. That's good to hear. Okay. Thank you very much for just sitting down with us and giving a brief on your presidency, Mr. President, and just give us an insight in what you would have done, you and your team would have done so far, and we enjoyed it, and we got new insight, and I hope we have inspired our leaders and our youths to be the future.
There's a quiet place that gives me peace when I'm alone with you. There's a hiding place. Your spirit's always there when I'm confused. Yeah. Only you can purify. All this world won't ever satisfy my heart. It cries, and as the deer pants for the water, so my soul needs you, Lord. With thirsty God, you're the living water, and my soul needs you, Lord, and needs you, Lord, need you, Lord, and need you, Lord, need you, Lord. I'm a stranger here, thirsty 'cause I know it's not my home. Yeah, like a desert here. I need your living word for these dry bones. Jesus, fill us up again with your presence flowing deep within. New life begins. I need you, Lord. Quench our hearts and fill this space with heaven like a flood. Oh, quench our hearts and fill this space with heaven like a flood. Oh, Holy One, rain down on us with your consuming love. As the deer pants for the water, so my soul, I need you, Lord. I need you, Lord. Ooh.